The Shalah HaKadosh, Rabbi Yeshayahu Horowitz, tells us that at the conclusion of Yom Kippur, at the Ne'ilah prayer, when we say Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad out loud, every member of the congregation should have the heartfelt intention of surrendering his soul for the sanctification of God's name. And by doing so, it's as if he actually did withstand the test of sacrificing himself for the sake of God. And the Alter Rebbe, Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, the founder of the Chabad movement, tells us that every single Jew possesses a spark of God, a literal spark of God. And even if he succumbs to sin and cannot overcome his evil desires, his godly soul is still present. It's just covered over. But when put to the test concerning a matter of faith, the soul is aroused from deep slumber and affirms that intrinsic connection to God. And when their very Jewishness is in question, so then every Jew is willing to sacrifice him or herself for the sake of God. And the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, comments that on Yom Kippur you have a unification of the three holiest aspects of the universe. It is the holiest time of the year, when you have the holiest Jew, the high priest, the Kohen Gadol, going into the holiest place, the Holy of Holies, in the temple in Jerusalem. And so therefore, it's a time for every single Jew to arouse that innermost dimension of the soul, which Kabbalah calls the Yechidah, this unified point of our soul to God, and express that unique oneness with God. And of course, the climax of that soulful experience is the end of Yom Kippur at the Ne'ilah service. And with that in mind, I want to tell a brief story of the previous Chabad Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson, who in the spring of 1940 was escaping Nazi-occupied Poland, and it was 2 days after Yom Kippur, and there were bombs falling everywhere. And they had to move from one basement to the next in order to keep ahead of the Nazi planes. And as they're running, there's smoke everywhere, there's fire all around them, there's nowhere to run. As he explains it, he says it's impossible to describe the pain and suffering that we beheld, the heartrending cries of women, children, and elders that were heard from afar. In the streets, pandemonium had broken loose as people dashed about frantically in search of shelter. And as they found refuge in one of the basements, they were huddled together, about 200 people of various walks of life. You had bearded Hasidic men and women in sheitlach, in wigs, and you also had completely clean-shaven, totally secular Jews that had no connection, seemingly, with Judaism. But everyone was huddled together, waiting for the next explosion, and all of a sudden, a deafening blast was heard, and there was fire coming into the room, because the room that was right next to them was bombed, and they thought they were face to face with death. And in that moment, every single one of those 200 Jews, religious, not religious, man, woman, didn't matter, cried out, Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God, the Lord is one. And the previous Rebbe explains that he had never before heard such a heartfelt Shema Yisrael declared by Jews of such various backgrounds. And he prayed to God that that inspiring memory would remain etched in his mind forever. And he said that that experience aroused within him a new sense of love and respect for every single Jewish man and woman, regardless of their religious observance or background. Nevertheless, their innermost faith in God remains intact. And he said that he was convinced at that moment that the Jewish spirit lives on, unconquerable. The Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, explains that this is the power of the Yechidah, that quintessential spark of the Jewish soul. And it can be revealed with great difficulty, but once it's exposed, whether in a life-threatening situation or, please God, by us under more favorable circumstances, the most disconnected person will cry out Shema Yisrael with the same intensity and same religiosity as the most saintly rabbi. And so it's my wish for all of us this Yom Kippur, as we just passed the 1-year anniversary of October 7th, and we're coming up on the 1-year anniversary on the Jewish calendar of Shmini Atzeret, I wish all of you a meaningful and powerful Yom Kippur, an end to this terrible war, the return of all the hostages, and safety and prosperity for Israel and all the Jewish people around the world. Shabbat Shalom, And may you have an easy fast this Yom Kippur. And may we see an end to all suffering with the coming of Mashiach, the Messiah. May it happen speedily in our days. Gemar Chatima Tova L'Shana Tova Matuka. May you be completely sealed for a good and sweet new year.